Have you ever felt like you want to experience joy, like you really desire to have more joy in your life, but you're struggling with how to get there? Or that the world that you're seeing, the days that you go through feel heavy with despair, with anger, with uncertainty, with just feeling that struggle and finding it hard to see any of the good or to feel the good. So for today, for us to figure out, okay, how can I find a bit more joy in my life? How can I have that experience? We're going to look at Psalm 67 and John 15, because John's going to play a little bit off of the Psalm. So Psalm 67 verses 1-4. Let God grant us grace and bless us. Let God make his face shine upon us, so that your way becomes known on earth, so that your salvation becomes known among all nations. Let the people thank God. Let all the people thank God. Let the people celebrate and shout with joy, because you judge the nations fairly and guide all nations on the earth. All right, so Psalm 67 here begins with a prayer. Let God grant us grace and bless us. And we are asking God for that grace. And you may go, okay, well, what does grace mean in this instance? Because there are all kinds of ways, there are all kinds of layers to grace. And here, grace is all about new insight, that God's presence with us gives us new insight and how God is at work in our life. And that insight, that perspective, that presence of God is meant to bless us and give us that warmth. Let God make his face shine upon us, that sense of God's presence bringing us warmth. And that because we have that kind of grace in our lives, because we have those kinds of blessings, that we are then able to celebrate with joy. And so to think about that, okay, if God's presence is with us, if we are praying that, if we are trying to figure out how that works, we get to question it, not only just pray and converse about it, but also go, okay, how is God's presence in my life this day? How am I asking for God's presence? And what new insights are we each gaining in that? And then to think about it in terms of giving us a little bit more of God's presence and God's warmth. Okay, how does that bring about joy? So that it's helpful then to go to John 15 verses 10-12. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy will be in you and your joy will be complete. This is my commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. All right, the words of Jesus here. I have said these things to you so that my joy will be in you and your joy will be complete. Joy comes with love. And so if we're struggling with the joy, if we're struggling with how do we experience it when everything it seems to be a struggle, when the lens that we're seeing life through is far more around the world of despair, of anger, of the unknown, of allowing those fears to settle in us, maybe even to the point of bitterness. That moment of going, wait a minute, how am I loving others? How am I allowing love to change and to infiltrate and to shape myself? But then how am I loving others in such a way that it actually brings joy, that it brings joy to them, but also joy to self? That sense that there is a way here that the way that we choose to love others, the way that we choose to allow love into our lives can actually open us up to more joy. And so if you're struggling with that sense of how am I experiencing joy? I want to, but the struggles, the pain, situations keep popping up and seem to be taking away from the ability to do that. Then that question becomes, how are you loving others? How are you living love in your own life to make space for joy that opens you up to joy? So my hope is that as you begin to question that, you begin to find ways to experience that joy through the way that you are loving others and to recognize the way that you are already loving others, allowing love into your life is actually giving you a sense of joy, because sometimes we always think of joy as everything is great, everything is wonderful, everything is just the way we want it, instead of looking at it from a perspective of how am I loving others? How am I allowing love into my life and taking joy in that? May you have a great day.